In marathon running, the 6-star medal is something that so many runners aspire to. It involves completing all of the world marathon majors: Tokyo, Boston, London, Berlin, Chicago, New York, and very recently there's been a new one added to the mix, a 7th major in Sydney Marathon. Each of these events are really unique. They've all got different vibes, different costs, different entry requirements. So today we're going to go through everything you need to know about how you can run these world-class running events and get your name on that 6-star medal and into that Hall of Fame. So a lot of people have been asking me what's going to happen to this 6-star medal now that Sydney is into the mix. Will it become a new 7-star medal? Well, the short answer is no. To be the 6-star finisher, you need to finish those original 6-star races. They're hoping to add 2 more races into the mix, as well as Sydney, which is now official, in Shanghai in China and Cape Town in South Africa. And when these are officially added into the program, there's going to be a 9-star medal. In the meantime, they've got this other memorabilia which you can buy to celebrate your Sydney finish. Right, let's get stuck into the first one of the calendar. How are you going to get in to run the Tokyo Marathon? Right, starting out with Tokyo Marathon, of course, the capital city of Japan. This started in 2007. Around about 38,000 runners compete through the lovely streets of Tokyo each year, usually around March time. It costs $160 for overseas runners, around about £130 to enter. Now, if you do want to enter, most people are going to go through the general ballot, but the chances here are unfortunately very slim. Now, they do have some time qualifiers here in Tokyo as well. It's called the Run as One Semi-Elite. For men, you've got to run a sub 2:28, women sub 3:09. Quite odd times there, to be honest. Now, a lot of people recently have come to me and said, go through the charity route, because I haven't done Tokyo yet. It's my last one to get my 6-star medal. Now, here they release 5,000 places to the official charities of the Tokyo Marathon. The minimum donation is around about 100,000 yen, so around about £500, and you donate that to the charity, and then you will get your place in the Tokyo Marathon. Now, of course, there are a few other backup options, some tour operators here. There are bibs set aside for tour operators. These are private companies that will organise your whole race weekend from the hotel and your race entry. And there's only some other things you can add on as part of your trip, with some trips and excursions and some sightseeing tours as well. And it can take a lot of the stress out of what is already quite a stressful weekend. There's no doubt about it, this is a really easy way to go, but you will always pay quite a premium to go through the official tour operator route. We'll put some examples of some of the biggest tour operator companies up on the screen. As always with my videos, there's nothing sponsored in this video in any way whatsoever. We're just trying to help out the running community with how to get into each race. Now, if you do want to enter the Tokyo Marathon, you've got to get your entry in around about August time for the race, which will happen in March of the next year. The cutoff time for Tokyo is 7 hours. And what makes this one really special and unique? Well, Japanese running culture is absolutely huge, and this really is just a huge, massive celebration of that. I've not done it, and as I say, it's the last one for me to get my 6-star medal, and I'm really hoping if I can go through this entry process, I will get my place for 2026. Maybe see you there. Right, moving on to have a chat about the oldest marathon on the list by a long way. The Boston Marathon started way back in 1897, in fact. Around about 35,000 runners compete on this iconic point-to-point race, which happens around the middle of April every year, but is always on Patriots Day, which is a really big deal in the Boston community, and it's always on a Monday as well. So a very unique thing about Boston Marathon there. Cost-wise, around about $230 American for US citizens. They charge $5 more for internationals. Next year, the price is rising up to around about $250. Inflation's getting everybody at the moment. Now, how to enter? There is no general ballot or lottery whatsoever at all. Pretty much everybody that runs the Boston Marathon will be getting a time qualifier to be able to run the race. This is why Boston is so prestigious, it's so unique, due to the difficulty to go out and get your Boston qualifier, or your BQ as you might have heard it termed before. Now, the time you need to run to get your BQ is based on your age and also your gender, and it also doesn't completely guarantee that you're going to get into the race, because every year they are oversubscribed with the amount of people that apply for their BQ. So let in the fastest lot of runners. For the 2025 race, there are around about 24,000 places with 36,000 applications, meaning there are around 12,000 people that were unfortunately left disappointed by not getting a place. They did really hard to get their BQ like everybody had, but you had to get under it by around about 6 minutes 51 seconds. It's getting harder and harder each year as technology improves. Shoes, nutrition, everything's getting better. More knowledge on the internet through videos like this, so the standards are always improving. Now, if you don't want to or you can't run a qualifying time, there are a few other options. There's always a bit of a moral dilemma, and people always love to have a bit of a debate about whether this should be allowed. Now, there are 1,000 charity bibs that are up for grabs each year from different fundraising amounts. Now, you don't need a BQ to go down this route, and of course there are tour operators that offer places as well. Again, you don't need a BQ to go through your tour operator. Now, when are you going to register? Well, the window is usually around early September each year and stays open for 5 days. The cutoff time for the Boston Marathon is 6 hours. And what makes this so special and unique? Well, it's been going such a long time, since 1897. There's so much history over the course, Heartbreak Hill, the legendary point-to-point course, really tough qualifying standards, and it's a fast runner's race course, and it feels amazing when you cross the finish line of this one, as I was lucky enough to do last year. Right, moving on to have a chat about the best of all the majors, and I might be a little bit biased, but this is London Marathon, my favourite marathon anywhere in the world. It is absolutely amazing. In terms of finisher numbers, it can vary quite a lot each year, anywhere between sort of 45 and 50,000 runners heading through the streets of London. Always happens towards the end of April. Cost-wise, £70 to enter. Pretty good value if you're from the UK. International, we charge quite a lot of people to do this one, around £225 or $280. There are 2 ballots, the general ballot and the international ballot. The general ballot is massively oversubscribed. I think last year 840,000 people were competing for a place. That's around about a 2% chance of getting in through the general ballot. If there's a stat to show how big the running boom is at the moment, I think that one is there. And there's a much smaller international ballot as well, which runs parallel to the main ballot. And then around 7,000 places are put aside for fast runners. This is split up into 2 different sections. The main one being what is called Good for Age, which is open to UK runners. Now, if you run a qualifying time in the previous year, you can put your application in for a Good for Age time. We'll put the times up on the screen now. You need to run faster than this to get in, and then they will accept the fastest 3,000 men and 3,000 women from all of the applications that come in. Now, you're going to have to run a little bit faster than that qualifying time to guarantee your place, but if you're a few minutes under, the chances are you are going to get in. Now, there's also what's called the London Marathon Championship as well. This is a sub-elite race that happens alongside the London Marathon, so people running here are actually running in 2 separate races. The application is very similar to Good for Age. They're going to accept the fastest 500 men and the fastest 500 women. Now, if you've ever seen any footage of the London Marathon, you'll know it is a huge charity fundraising event. That is the ethos. That's what the London Marathon is all about. And so many people will be dressed up in fancy dress, raising money for their charities. So there's a lot of charity places up for grabs at the marathon. They usually come with a minimum fundraising target of around about £2,000 to £2,500. They're open to anybody, anywhere around the world. You just need to apply to the charity and they will hopefully give you a place, and then set about your fundraising to raise that money to pay the charity for the place. And of course, as we said with Tokyo, there are tour operators here that will operate. We'll put the main ones up on the screen now. You can apply to them and they will sort out a hotel for you and your race entry as well. Cut-off wise, we're talking around about 8 hours. There's a dedicated group of 50 tail walkers just set to get everybody to the finish line. If you start London Marathon, you are going to get to the end of the London Marathon if you want to. It's all set up to help everybody, no matter how fast or how slow, walking, whatever you want to do, there'll be people to help get you to the end. Now, what makes London so special and unique amongst all the others? For me, it's all about the charity runners, the costumes, the world record attempts, so many first timers. For me, London Marathon was my first ever marathon, completely changed my life when I was 18 years old. The crowds really are the best of any marathon course I've ever been to, any in the world. You go around the Cutty Sark, over Tower Bridge, Big Ben, finishing at Buckingham Palace, it's just a day you will remember for the rest of your life. Whatever the weather, London comes out to party. As I say, I think it's the best marathon out there. If you disagree, hit me up down in the comments and we'll have a debate about it down there. London Marathon do also offer a virtual race which runs a parallel with the main marathon every single year. It's called London Marathon My Way. It costs £30 for UK runners or £40 for international runners. You download their official app on your phone and then set it up, and it records your GPS as you run your marathon on the same day as the London Marathon. It tracks your marathon as you go along your run, and when you complete it you get your medal and also a finisher's t-shirt as well. Next on the list is the new one. It's the Sydney Marathon. Now this has actually been running since 2001, but it's new to the majors list as of 2025. Now the cost to put your name into the ballot is 250 Australian dollars, around about 155 American dollars or 125 pounds. How to enter: most people here are going to be going through the general ballot. This always opens around about the December time for the following year. If you are selected, then your cards are automatically charged, so make sure you definitely want to run it. New for this year, they do have a time qualifier. They've introduced this high performance program for faster runners to secure their spot in the race. This is how I've entered for 2025. Now you do need to enter that separately. There's a separate section on the website to fill in your details if you do want one of those high performance slots there. There are also official charities. These are around about £1,800 as the minimum donation to the charity to secure your place in the race. Of course, as with all these races on the list, there are official tour operators. There's a whole list of them on the Sydney Marathon website. In terms of when to enter, this is during December for the ballot, and then December and a little bit of January for the high performance program. Cut-off time is very generous, around about 7 hours. And what makes Sydney so special? Well, I'm sure I could have a debate with some Australians about the best finish line of any marathon on this list, but I'm sure a lot of them will be arguing this could be Sydney. Finishing outside the Opera House, finishing with the Sydney Harbour Bridge out to your side. It's going to be an amazing event. Next up on the list, Berlin Marathon. I've been lucky to do this 4 times, I think, so far. Happens in September each year. Cost-wise, around about €200 to get your place, around about £170. Now, how to enter the Berlin Marathon? Most people will enter the general ballot to get into the race. Time qualifier-wise, they do have the fast runner program here as well, which is a time qualification based on how old you are. Under 45 years of age, under 59 years of age, and then over 60 years of age for men and women. We'll put those times up on the screen now. This is how I've got in pretty much every year that I've run it. Another thing I really like about Berlin, and I wish other marathons did this, especially for the international runners, is you can also enter as a team. You either all get in or nobody gets in. So if you've got a group going, you can all plan knowing you're all going to be doing the race, or none of you are going to be doing the race. Now, there's no official sort of team event during the race. It's just how you enter the race. So kudos for Berlin for doing that, and hopefully some of the other majors will take note and offer that service as well. Now, of course, like all the races here, there's plenty of charity options to go through. We'll link to what that looks like on the Berlin Marathon website. You can select the charity that means something to you and raise some funds for them. In return, you'll get your spot into the race. And of course, there's tour operators as well that will plan all the logistics for you. And again, they're obviously a little bit on the expensive side, but they take all the stress and the worry out of it. Now, in terms of when to enter the Berlin Marathon, the ballot opens around about October time every year for the race happening the following September. Stays open for about a month as well, so you've got plenty of time to get your ballot entry in. Cut-off wise, a little bit faster here. It's about 6 hours 15 minutes to get round the course here, but it's very fast and very flat, and that's what makes Berlin one of the most amazing PB potential races, not only in the majors but anywhere in the world. Also, a really quirky fact here, there's an inline skating marathon that happens the day before the race as well. Right, 2 to go. Next up, Chicago. This was one of my absolute highlights from 2023. Absolutely love this race. Around about 48,000 runners competing here each year, and it usually happens towards the beginning of October. Cost-wise, around about 245 American dollars for American citizens, or $255 for international, around about £210. Now, how to enter? Most people will be going through the official Chicago Marathon ballot, which opens late October each year for the following year, and you've got around about a 25% chance of getting in this way. Now, there are some time qualifiers to get your guaranteed entry into the race. There's 2 separate time qualifiers actually, one general one and one for some sub-elite runners as well. We'll put the general qualification times up on the screen now. You need to have run these times in the previous 18 months-ish, and then then they also run what's called the High Performance Program each year, where you also get some hospitality on the start line and then a pen right at the front of the field as well. Like all the races on the list, there are those charity options as well, starting for around about $1,250 and upwards. And of course, there's tour operators that will arrange your race entry and hotel packages to go along as well. Also, there's another couple of ways that you can enter. The first one being is if you are what's called a legacy finisher, and that is if you finish 5 Chicago marathons in the last 10 years, then you can get your guaranteed spot. The second one being if you've completed the Chicago Distance Series in the previous year. So you've completed the Shamrock Shuffle, you've completed the Chicago 13.1 and the Chicago Marathon, that you can get your guaranteed spot for the next year's Chicago Marathon. When to enter, as we said, towards the end of October, which is when all the ballots open. Cut-off wise, 6 hours 30 minutes. What makes Chicago special and unique? The organisation was the best I've ever seen at any marathon out there, but really it's all about the course. It's very flat, it's very fast. Both men's and women's world records are currently held here in Chicago. They were at Berlin before, and then Chicago's taken them currently. Really good crowds out there, really fast, really fun, huge atmosphere, and a fantastic PB potential. Right, moving on to the final one on the list, and it's one I absolutely love, the New York Marathon. 53,000 incredible people running through the 5 boroughs of New York on just this epic November day. It's just one of my absolute favourite races anywhere in the world. Cost-wise, members of New York Road Runners, $255, non-members, $315, or around about £255. Quite expensive, but it's an amazing experience. Now, how to enter? Most people here are going to be going through the ballot. Now, there are 3 separate ballots. The first one being for residents of New York, the second one for the whole of America, and the third one for any international people. If you're selected, then your card again will be automatically charged. They'll take the money and you'll be into the race. Now, if you are a faster runner, you might not want to go through the ballot route. You might want to enter and try and secure yourself a place through the time qualifier standards. Now, there's 2 different sections here. The first one being people that have run a time qualifier in a New York Road Runner official race. If you run a marathon or a half marathon faster than the qualifying times, and you can get a guaranteed entry into the next year's race. You do this all through your New York Road Runners dashboard. This is how I got in the last time I ran, which I ran a qualifying time in a half marathon, the Brooklyn half marathon. Now, if you have run your qualifying time in a non-New York Road Runners race, then it can only be over the marathon distance, and then you can apply for a spot during the application window. Now, this does not give you a guaranteed entry in the race. This is how I will be entering, putting in my race times from London Marathon last year of a 2:48 marathon. Hopefully that's 10 minutes under the qualifying time. That should be okay. But if they've got more people apply for it than they have places, then they will only be accepting the fastest people that qualify it. So some people might lose out at the end. But hopefully, fingers crossed, 10 minutes under should be okay. There's a few other ways of how to get in. The most famous one being the 9+1 program. To anyone that runs 9 New York Road Runners races during the previous year and volunteers at one of those as well, you will then get that guaranteed entry into the marathon. There are also some guaranteed spots for anyone that ran in the virtual marathon as well. You simply needed to enter the virtual marathon pricing tier that included a guaranteed entry if you finish your virtual marathon to get into the main marathon next year. These are around about $175 to run the virtual marathon, or $200 to run the virtual marathon as an international person, but finishing those and you will get a spot in the marathon. That's why they're a little bit more expensive than the standard virtual marathon. And then finally, runners who have finished 15 New York marathons, you need a big pat on the back for doing that. That's incredible, and it will cost you a lot of money to do that over the years, but then you can carry on getting a guaranteed entry each year into the race. Now, of course, like all the races here, you've got charity spots available to you, and of course tour operators as well. The ballot opens in February each year. Cut-off times, this is really quite hard to say. The course closes at 10 o'clock at night, so roughly you're going to have around about 7 hours for the last person that crosses the start line. They're going to have around about 7 hours to get round, but if you're setting off a little bit earlier than that, you will have longer. So it's a bit different for everybody, but at least 7 hours to finish for that 10 o'clock cut-off time. What makes New York so special and unique? It's a really tough course. I think it's the toughest one out of all of the majors. I'm sure some people that would argue that Boston is even harder. You run through all 5 boroughs of New York. The people in New York come out and cheer. When you're running down First Avenue, the noise is incredible. incredible. It's of course one of the biggest marathons anywhere in the world. As you head out of Staten Island over the Verrazano Narrows Bridge, it's just one of the most amazing start lines of every marathon. If Sydney's got the best finish, then New York has to be the best start line out of them all. Just the crowd, the support out on the course is just incredible, and finishing in Central Park, what a finish line as well. It's just an amazing day out there. That is a medal you will really earn heading over those bridges to get all that elevation in. It's a hilly race, but don't worry, you will get round and it'll be absolutely fine. So there we have it, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video, and let me know which races you're going to be heading to this year. For us, we're going to be heading to London Marathon, where we'll be running, and we'll be at the expo every day with my brand and everything, benparks.com, the best running hats, tees. We hopefully see you at the expo there, and hopefully we're heading to Sydney and to New York as well. Best of luck wherever you're racing. If you're racing Chicago, if you're racing Boston, and you're racing Berlin, let us know down, and Tokyo as well, let us know down in the comments. And we've got dedicated guides to all these races as well. Not all of them, we're building up the guides, but we'll link to that playlist up here. That's it, we'll see you in the next one.